So hi everyone, this is Jessica from the Achievement Squad coming at you with our first ever episode of EZG. Now the aim behind this series is to generate some awareness to you guys on games that we have found very easy throughout the year to get yourself the full 1000G. Some of these games we've done guides for, some of them they don't require guides, so in this case we are literally putting them forward to you just so that you're aware. Now please don't pass judgment on my Gamerscore for this month, I will crank it up very shortly. But we're going to do a bit more than a slightly longer episode for the first one because this is our first in the series and we wanted to walk you through some of our favourite games for 2019, where we got the 1000G on. And we'll provide you with links to the guides if we've already done it. In some cases, like I mentioned earlier, some of these games don't require a guide, but just patience, grinding out, walking to the right, that kind of stuff where you don't really need our help for. But we're just going to generate that awareness so you know that it's there. So without further ado, I'm going to head over to our first game, and our first game in this episode is Pipe Push Paradise. So the first game on our list is Pipe Push Paradise, which came out in February. Now, this game was not an easy 1000G for me, however, we have done the job of making it an easy 1000G for you. Now, this game costs around about $8.99, so nine British pounds. For our friends over in the US, it's probably roughly maybe $10 to $12 for this game. It's going to take you about roughly an hour and a half if you're following the guide all the way through. If you're not following the guide, it's going to take you about 6 weeks. This game is incredibly difficult, yet at the same time, it's incredibly rewarding if you're able to solve the puzzles on your own accord. But if you're looking to bag that quick 1000G, then use the guide on the channel. I'll place a link in the top right hand corner. Now, this game has been our first step into the kind of indie puzzler game world, and I have to admit the response has been absolutely fantastic from you guys so far. Shout out to Brown Man, who actually utilized the guide and gave us a bit of a shout out in his stream, so we're returning the favor here, even though I don't have the same subscriber base. Just wanted to make you aware that was very important to us, and we really appreciate that. So yeah, Pipe Push Paradise came out in February this year. It's going to take you about an hour and a half. There aren't a huge amount of achievements. All the achievements are linked to completing particular areas and all of the puzzles and at different difficulties, and then the secret areas that occur later on in the game. But if you're looking for that quick hour and a half, something that's a little bit of a challenge, then I strongly recommend the Pipe Push Paradise game for you to give it a try. Okay, so on to our next game. This one is Old Man's Journey, so game number 2. This was released also earlier this year, I believe in March. And this game is currently on Game Pass. It's free of charge for those that are using the Game Pass. You can get Game Pass Ultimate, I believe, at the minute as well for a relatively cheap price. And this game is going to take you roughly 1 hour to complete. This game is already out on the PlayStation 4 for some time, as well as on many mobile phones, which I believe is where it started. Now, the game itself, you can't die in it. You pretty much walk to the right and just kind of point and click, and as you're going through that, you will just bag yourself the achievements. The two kind of downfalls that scream out to me in this game is actually coming back to a part with the train. Now, a lot of you have expressed the frustration about trying to complete the train section. It is not easy, it's buggy as hell. So top tip, if you're playing this game, you can actually do it on PC if you have a decent enough PC to run the game. And it just requires you to use a mouse to pull down the specific ledges towards the train, to make sure that it can cross the tracks correctly. The second part that kind of lets it down a little bit is that for you to actually unlock the achievements, you are required to actually somewhat give over some information. Now, exactly what that information is, I don't know, but it says about the privacy terms and it recommends that you read them before you go ahead. But the game does force your hand a little bit to share some information with Microsoft and the game developer to actually let you unlock the achievements, which is a little bit cheeky, and us Europeans are very possessive over our data. That being said, it does take roughly about just over the hour mark for you to complete, so you're looking at about an hour and 15 minutes, and it's a very nice game. It's very relaxing. Overall, it is good fun, despite, I say, the minor setback with the train section. I know a couple of you have rage quit on this one, but stick with it and you can get to the other side. So next up on the list we have a game called Bird Game Plus, and this is a very simple indie title. Now, we haven't done this one on our channel ourselves, but this is very much a bird flying simulator. You are an incredibly tiny bird that is flying through some form of jungle thing. Now, it's very cheap, this game. I think it's roughly about £5. It's not going to cost you too much. There's no real need for this guide for this game. As you can see, you pretty much just fly forward the whole time. The achievements are very much around getting to the first and the second boss, as well as kind of some miscellaneous things like picking up some health collectibles along the way, and then partaking in some boss fights. There are 2 boss fights that you will encounter to complete this. So the first boss fight is with a set of bugs. The second is with a frog. You don't actually have to beat the frog. At that point you can quit out and you have done the main story achievements. And then you'll jump into something called Endless Mode, which is what we're showing to you now. So Endless Mode requires you pretty much just to fly forward, and the aim is for you to get to the score of 200. You'll counter the bosses again, but they only take 1 hit to take out, if you're aware of how to do that. But you pretty much just fly straight forward for the whole entire game. Overall, I'd say it's a relatively good game, but it does have some very kind of frustrating moments which are very fiddly, particularly with the wind pushing you from left to right. And there are a couple of sections, like now as you see with this rolling log, they can actually be quite tricky to get away from. But bear with it. Roughly about 40 minutes and you should be in the clear and have all of the achievements for this game. So next up on our list we have a game called Grass Cutter. Now in this game you are a lawnmower. That is it. You pretty much, the aim of the game is for you to cut the grass. Now the game does kind of go at you a little bit and throw in some surprise monsters and all of this kind of stuff. But this game is very straightforward. So you pretty much, the aim of it is to grind out some of the achievements, such as scaring the birds, scaring the cats multiple times. I think it's 15 times for the bird, 50 times for the cat, and then cutting over 1,000 squares of grass, as well as taking out several monsters on the way. It's very grindy, however it's very doable. Again, the game does not cost a lot, and it's going to take you roughly probably 40 minutes. I mean, I actually sucked at the game, to be honest. Yeah, don't rely on me to mow your lawn ever. It took me a lot longer than it took me, about an hour and a half, but if you're actually good at gaming, and like me, then you're looking at roughly about 40 minutes. Okay, so on to the next game, which is Ascendance. This also came out earlier this year, just like every other game in this list. This is actually one of my favourite games that I played. Overall, this game is actually very relaxing, and it wasn't stressful at all, minus a few kind of bugs here and there where things, you couldn't land on certain jumps properly. But the game is only going to take you roughly 50 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes to kind of complete, and all of the achievements in this game are related to collectibles and completing the level itself. So the collectibles are called Kerberos. You'll find them throughout the level, and yeah, the end of the game comes when you've pretty much rendered in the entire kind of environment. So for those of you who have actually played the game called Refunked, this will remind you very much of that game. It has that kind of similar effect. I liked it because it was very relaxing at the cost of also £5 or $6 to $7 kind of dollars for our friends in the US. This was a very quick and actually enjoyable 1000G. Minus a few bugs here and there with the jumping, and the game not actually telling you that you could use the sprint function by holding down the left bumper. But you should be done within about an hour of picking up the title. And we have a guide for this one on our channel, and I'll place the link in the top right hand corner for you. But again, very straightforward game, very enjoyable, and should be a very quick win for you. So next up on our list we have Bouncy Bullets. Bouncy Bullets is another kind of quick win game. You're pretty much playing what would be a ice skating simulator, in my opinion. It's about you're a guy who's going around with a gun, sliding across the floor, what it feels like, and pretty much making these kind of awkward jumps. The game itself is only going to take you roughly 40 minutes to get through. The aim of the game is pretty much to take out these enemies that are dotted around the area, whilst making some pretty awkward jumps to avoid traps and falling into the water and that kind of stuff. As part of the game, so you have a gun which you're pretty much firing away. As you can see, there's a lot of achievements that are linked to things like death. So when I fall into the water here, I bag myself an achievement called Don't Give Up. But you pretty much, the aim is to progress as far as you can through the levels. You only need to kind of complete 20, I believe it is, to finish the achievements in the main story. And then you'll switch over to something called special levels. And the special levels are slightly more hyped up versions of the levels you've already done. These levels will include a lot more traps, that kind of stuff. But yeah, again, it's actually quite a nice game. It feels like you're ice skating a little bit, but overall very colourful. I actually really enjoyed the soundtrack of this one as well, but it was a very quick and easy 1000G yet again.
What a lovely day for a stroll.
So the next two entries on the list are The Adventures of Bertram Fiddle. Bertram Fiddle is a two-part game. You've got episode 1 and episode 2. Both episodes cost roughly the £5-6 mark. Episode 1 will take you just around, I think, about an hour and 20 minutes to complete. The second episode, if you're following it all through, listening to the dialogue, is going to take you about 2 hours to do. Now, the achievements for this game are very much kind of collectible related. So you'll find that it's about talking to all of the people in the game, finding all of these kind of stuffed animals, chewing pigeons, that kind of stuff. So they're all kind of hidden and dotted throughout the game. The hardest achievements in the first episode are the ones where you're chasing after the guy or being chased by the ghosts. So the aim behind this particular section is not to get hit by the or run into the crowd, and sometimes you can kind of mess that up quite easy, and it requires you to dashboard to fix the problem. Beyond that though, that's about as hard as it gets for the episode 1, and episode 2 is not that much more difficult. I do really like this game because it's very kind of British sarcasm humour all the way, and an absolute ton of puns, which is incredibly important to me. So yeah, game's very cheap, roughly £5 per episode. There's 2 of them, so about £10 in total. Great game. Enjoyed it. I strongly recommend that you guys go on and give this one a shot. If you're a big fan of things like Broken Sword or Monkey Island, that kind of game, then this is actually probably right up the street. It has a similar style, gameplay, and similar sense of humour that comes with it, which makes it all that entertaining. Yep. So roughly about 3 hours, and you can bag yourself about 4 hours, and you can bag yourself about 2000G for playing this game. We've also got 2 full guides up on our channel, so I'll place the links to those also in the description, and as well as into the notifications just above. So next up on the list we have a game called Paradox Soul. Paradox Soul is recently released, so not too long ago, and again the game is also very cheap. This game itself, just like Bouncy Bullets, doesn't actually require you to complete the game. It just requires you to keep playing until you reach certain points. So the primary achievements that you'll get, they're pretty much orientated around killing certain enemy types, finding guns, finding ID cards, and then fighting the bosses. This will take you roughly about 20 minutes. There are plenty of guides already out on Paradox Soul around YouTube that you guys can follow. This game itself, I didn't actually complete it, but I actually somewhat enjoyed it. I did find it that kind of little bit of entertaining. It's quite hard to begin with, but once you get the hang of it and you start to figure out things like the duck and cover system, as well as the jumping, it was going to take you no time at all to get the full 1000G. As you can tell by the video, just by pretty much picking up the gun alone, I've net myself, nearly 180 odd G in the beginning. But as you can also see, I'm absolutely horrendous. So don't, follow my path here. I absolutely sucked at this game. But it's not going to take you long to complete. Overall, good, entertaining game. So next up, we have Ovivo. Ovivo was a game that we've just done recently on our channel. It's about 4 weeks ago, roughly. And this game is about a dot. It is about a dot that likes to go left and right and change colour. Now, the primary aim behind this game is to pretty much grab all the collectibles. This game actually can be quite fiddly, and I know a couple of you have struggled with some of the jumping mechanisms in this. If you've played things like Portal, it will remind you of that, because it's about momentum to kind of gain speed and jump higher. But OVO, I found it was an okay game. It was fairly quick to complete, roughly about an hour and a half. All of the collectibles are pretty much linked to the achievements, so you get these things called Morse code dots as you're going through, which you pick up, which actually do translate into something else, which is pretty cool. But the entire premise of the achievements are linked to picking up all of the Morse code dots in the game, as well as finding these symbols that you'll find as you go throughout. And there is roughly 3 symbols per level. There's a total of 10 levels. I don't think the first level has any symbols, but you pretty much bag yourself an achievement every time you get that set of symbols. So it's not going to take you long, but certainly worth doing, and it's an easy 1000G for you guys to pick up there. So next up on our list we have Neon Junctions. So Neon Junctions is a indie puzzle title, and it's a very easy, straightforward, very nice and relaxing game. So there's nothing too complicated about it. It's going to take you roughly 45 minutes with a guide, about an hour and 15 without a guide. But the aim of the game is to go around picking up these red squares and some of these power circles that you find throughout the game to solve the puzzles that allow you to move forward. Majority of the achievements are puzzle related or linked to carrying 49 cubes out of a level or picking up over 200 in total. But it's not going to take you long to figure this out. It didn't take me too long without a guide. It took me roughly about an hour and 20 minutes. But if you follow the guide on our channel, it's going to take you about 45. But overall, yeah, very good, enjoyable game, this one. It's actually quite relaxing, and it wasn't too stressful, and it wasn't too complicated either. So yeah, it's another quick win for you guys, and it's also a very cheap game to pick up on the store as well. So on to our last game. This game is called Solo. This just came out recently, and apologies we didn't get a guide out in time for this one because we had some technical difficulties. At the same time, Brennan and I have had a very hectic schedule, so finding the time to get guides done has been a little bit tricky, so we do apologize for not putting out much content recently. Now this game is going to take you roughly about an hour and a half. There are a few guides out there already today for this one, but this is probably one of my favorite indie games of the year so far. It's a great little puzzle title. I think it costs roughly about £10 for the game itself. The aim behind it is pretty much about repairing a failed relationship. That's the aim of the story. But the achievements themselves, they're pretty much quite straightforward. So heading down to the beach and sitting on a chair in true British fashion and relaxing for a bit and not doing anything is, one of the achievements. Whereas walking around the island and finding these random kind of dog bumblebee creatures and birds that are oddly shaped like pears and feeding them is also one of the achievements in this game. Overall, it was very enjoyable, very good to look at, very well built, no particular bugs or flaws. Some of the puzzles could be a little bit tricky from time to time with some very awkward jumps, but I strongly recommended this game to you guys if you get the chance. Now I just wanted to give a big shout out to you guys. This channel has only been going for about 9 months now. We're coming up to our first year, and we didn't know what we were going to do. It was a couple of guys, Brennan and I, wanted to start a channel because this was our hobby, to hunt achievements, and we thought, why not return the favor? We've already got other folks out there making these guides, so why not join in and help out the Xbox community to build these achievement guides? And we honestly didn't expect to get to where we are in such a short space of time, and that's because of you guys. So we got a lot of thanks to give you, and it's very difficult to convey that message. A lot of effort and a lot of work goes into this, but because of you guys, it's been absolutely fantastic. Every piece of feedback you give us is taken onto account, and just to help us improve, and we can't thank you enough for that. I've been Jessica from the Achievement Squad. Thank you very much.